Welcome to Victorian society, where eyes were always watching. Now relax. Let the modern world fade away. No cars. No buzzing phones. No screens. Instead, cobblestone streets, the ticking of a carriage wheel, the faint echo of horse hooves down a narrow road. You are no longer here. You are now living in Victorian England, and you are not just anyone. You are a lady. But not in the way stories or movies show you. This is not a tale of ballrooms and flattery. This is a life built on restraint, routine, and relentless observation. Let us step slowly into your world, a place where silence is currency and every breath must be measured. Morning, a day begins in stillness. Your eyes open not to sunlight, but to the sound of fire being coaxed back to life by a maid, her footsteps quiet, her presence invisible. A flicker of coal light warms the corner of your bedroom. You lie still under heavy quilts, conscious of your posture even now. You cannot stretch or groan. Such movements are undignified. A lady rises with grace, not with yawns. When you finally sit up, your hair is loose down your back, but it won't stay that way for long. In a few moments, another set of hands, practiced and efficient, will brush it 100 strokes. Why 100? Because tradition says so. Because neatness is a virtue. Because disorder, even in hair, whispers of disorder in the soul. You are handed a linen robe. It is modest, white buttoned. Nothing clings. Nothing reveals. You have not spoken a word yet. No one expects you to. Dressing, a ritual in layers. To the modern mind, getting dressed takes a few minutes. For you, it is a ceremony. Chemise first, then drawers, then a corset, the tight-laced armor you will wear all day. Your maid pulls the laces tight behind you. You do not wince because wincing implies weakness. You breathe shallowly and remain silent. The corset shapes your waist, not for beauty, not entirely, but for control. A disciplined body suggests a disciplined mind. Next, layers of petticoats, then a crinoline, then your gown. It may be of silk if you're lucky, or starched cotton. Its sleeves and collar are high. Its hem brushes your boots. Your boots are polished. Your gloves are folded. Your bonnet waits. But before you step out of your room, you pause to check your appearance. Not in a mirror, but in your stillness. Is your back straight? Are your shoulders lowered? Is your expression composed? These things matter more than you know. Breakfast, the quietest meal. Downstairs, the breakfast table is neatly arranged. Toast, jam, eggs, tea. Everything is silent, from the clinking of porcelain to the rustle of newspapers. There is no loud conversation. Women do not speak unless directly addressed. You sit upright in your chair. You fold your hands when not eating. You take small bites, chew quietly, and never butter more than one piece of bread at a time. The silence is not uncomfortable. It is expected. It is how proper families begin their day. You listen, not to join, but to understand. Perhaps your father is discussing stocks. Perhaps your brother is sighing over parliamentary debates. You smile politely but say nothing. Politics are not your place. Letters, politeness on paper. After breakfast, you return to your private sitting room. There, a stack of letters awaits you. Correspondence is your lifeline to the social world. And yet, even in writing, rules abound. You open each letter with a knife. You read it slowly, carefully. If someone has invited you to tea, you must respond within 2 days. No more, no less. If a woman writes to compliment your dress at church, you must compliment her hat in return. If someone expresses sorrow for your sister's cold, you must thank them without revealing any new detail. Illness is private. Even minor ailments must be cloaked in polite vagueness. You pick up your fountain pen and begin to write. Your handwriting is even, slanted, feminine, not too bold, not too faint. A blot of ink could signal carelessness. A heavy loop may seem too assertive. Words like lovely, gracious, and delighted flow freely. Feelings, however, do not. Sewing in stillness. The clock ticks slowly. Your needlework rests in your lap. You embroider not just to pass the time but to shape your character. Sewing teaches patience, precision, and quiet diligence, all desirable traits in a woman. Each stitch is a lesson. Each pattern a symbol of your station. A guest enters, another lady perhaps. You both smile, comment on the weather, and exchange practiced compliments. There is no laughter, no debate, just small words on small things. To speak boldly is to invite trouble. To be too quiet is to seem dull. The balance must always be perfect. Afternoon, calling hours. Between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., it is time for social visits. You do not drop by unannounced. No, you leave a calling card first. If your card is returned with a folded corner, it means the lady visited while you were out. If it is left unopened, it means she does not wish to receive you. The card is not just paper. It is status. You dress for the visit, not in your best but in something respectable. Gloves, bonnet, boots, all coordinated, never flashy. When you enter a home, you do not sit unless invited. You do not remove your gloves unless the hostess does first. You speak lightly, laugh softly, and leave precisely after 15 minutes. Any longer and you seem presumptuous. Any shorter and you seem uninterested. You walk home slowly. You carry yourself like a cloud. Light, quiet, untouchable. Conversation, a dangerous dance. Dinner approaches. A few guests may be arriving. An uncle, a distant cousin, perhaps a neighboring clergyman. The meal is formal. There are 6 forks, 3 spoons, 2 knives. You know the order. You were trained in it since childhood. You wait to sit until the hostess does. You unfold your napkin discreetly and place it on your lap. You sip water only when no one is speaking. The conversation begins. The men speak of railways. The older women mention a royal birth. Someone says the weather has turned. You smile and agree. You do not mention your headaches, or your sadness, or the novel you read in secret last week. The one with the woman who ran away. No, that is not who you are. Not here. Not tonight. You are calm, composed. You belong. Evening, reflection and silence. The guests have gone. The house is dim. Candles flicker. You sit by your window wrapped in a shawl. You do not write a diary. Diaries are private. Privacy is dangerous. But you remember. You remember how your feet ached in those boots, how your corset made your ribs press inwards, how you smiled too long, how you said too little, and how no one noticed, or maybe they did. Tomorrow it will begin again. The waking, the dressing, the writing, the nodding, the sewing, the sitting, the silence. It is a life of detail, of discipline, of performance. The house of mourning, grief as a public duty. In the Victorian world, even grief has rules. If someone in your family dies, say a husband, a father, or a sibling, mourning is not just private sorrow. It is a public performance. A highly structured ritual with strict rules and harsher judgment. If you are a widow, your life changes completely. Black. Everything is black. Black dress, black veil, black gloves, black ribbons, black embroidery. Not even shiny fabric is allowed. For 2 full years you wear no color, no lace, no shimmer. Just matte, lifeless crepe. A fabric so dull, it absorbs light and attention alike. The crepe itches your skin. It sheds fibers that cling to everything. But you wear it anyway. Not because you want to, but because you must. If you cry too much, they'll say you're putting on a show. If you don't cry at all, they'll say you never loved him. There is no correct amount of grief, only a correct appearance of it. Even mourning has etiquette. Stages of mourning, a calendar of sadness. The mourning period is divided into 3 parts. Deep mourning, 12 months. You do not attend social functions. No theater, no visiting, no dancing. You avoid music. You avoid conversation unless absolutely necessary. You write only in black-edged stationery. Your voice stays quiet. Your opinions stay quieter. Second mourning, 3 to 6 months. You may replace crepe with bombazine, still black but softer. You may reintroduce modest jewelry, a locket with your loved one's hair inside, or a brooch carved from jet. You may go on walks again, but only during the day. Evening outings are still inappropriate. Half mourning, 3 to 6 months. Finally, you can begin to wear muted colors. Lavender, gray, mauve. You may attend small teas or modest dinners, but never dances. You are still marked by loss, but your return to society begins slowly. Mourning as identity. If you are a woman and you wear the wrong color too soon, it is not just a fashion mistake. It is a moral offense. People will whisper, "She moved on too fast. She must not have cared. She's trying to catch a new husband." If you mourn too long, they will say, "She's wallowing. She likes the attention. She's trying to be dramatic." So you learn to manage sorrow the same way you manage your smile, your corset, your posture. You mourn in silence, in order, in rhythm with the calendar. Even grief is a performance. Even tears have a dress code. The rules of romance, love without touch. You are a young woman now, no longer a child, not yet a wife. Romance is real, but it is invisible. There are no dates, no walks alone, no unsupervised conversations. Everything, every feeling, must be filtered through etiquette and chaperones. You may meet a gentleman at a ball. You may bow. You may curtsy. You might dance, but only once or twice. Too many dances with the same man, and society will start whispering. They always whisper. He may call at your house, but only with a card, only with approval, only in the company of others. You may exchange letters, but only after an understanding has been made, and your father may read them first. Romance is not passion. It is negotiation in ribbons and silence. Flirting without words. Do you want to flirt? You don't say it. You drop your handkerchief. He picks it up. You say, "Thank you," and allow your gloved fingers to touch his, just barely. Do you like someone? You don't tell him. You use your fan. If you open your fan wide and cover your face, you're being playful. If you snap it shut quickly, you are annoyed. If you let it dangle slowly from one hand, it means you're interested, very interested. A dropped glove is not a mistake. A twirled parasol is not boredom. Everything means something, but you never say what it means. That would be improper. The proposal, a silent earthquake. If a man proposes to you, he doesn't do it on one knee. Not always. He asks your father first. Then, if approved, he visits you. He may bring flowers. He may bring a ring. He may say kind, polite, rehearsed words. You are expected to say yes, not too quickly, but not with hesitation either. Too eager is desperate. Too cautious is ungrateful. You smile. You lower your eyes. You murmur something delicate like, "I would be honored." You are now engaged, but you still do not spend time alone. Not until marriage. Never until marriage. Courtship constraints, a long wait. Your engagement may last months, sometimes a year. During this time, you are constantly judged. Are you too affectionate in public? Too cold in private? Are you pressuring him? Are you avoiding him? You must be visible but modest, grateful but not giddy, pleased but never proud. This is the time when your in-laws study you, when the neighbors watch closely, when your mother reminds you gently but firmly that your behavior now will shape your reputation forever. Every dress, every thank you note, every visit you make together, all part of the test. Wedding night, the unspoken shift. Your wedding is a carefully arranged ceremony. You wear white, not to symbolize purity, but because Queen Victoria made it fashionable. You walk slowly down the aisle, arm in arm with your father. You do not look around. You do not smile too widely. You do not cry. You speak your vows in a voice soft enough to be feminine, loud enough to be heard. You sign your name in the parish book. And then, everything changes. For the first time in your life, you will be alone with a man. No one prepares you. No one explains. The world expects you to know how to behave, how to act, how to please, how to serve. all without instruction. And yet you do. Or at least you pretend to. Pretending is what you've been doing all your life. Life as a wife, endless duty. You now belong to someone. Legally, socially, entirely. Your name changes. Your opinions do not matter unless they mirror his. You manage a household. Servants, menus, guests, accounts. You learn how to make 12 kinds of tea sandwiches, how to order flowers for every season, how to host a dinner without a single crumb out of place. You wake before him. You sleep after him. You bear children. You write letters of thanks. You remember anniversaries. You smile at his jokes. You silence your worries. And if he is cruel, if he forgets you, embarrasses you, avoids you, you do not speak of it. Not to friends. Not to family. You are a Victorian wife. You endure. You smile. You keep secrets. Closing thoughts. The life behind the lace. So much of your life is quiet suffering wrapped in soft fabric. So much of it is invisible pressure behind heavy doors. But sometimes, when you walk alone in the garden, when your fingers rest on the keys of the piano, when you look into a mirror and see your own eyes instead of someone else's daughter, wife, or mother, you wonder, am I really? You will never say it out loud, but you will always wonder. And that, too, is Victorian. Children, seen not heard. The nursery smells of chalk, soap, and something vaguely metallic, the scent of iron toys and dried ink. It is the children's world, but even here, silence rules. As a Victorian lady, your children are yours, but not entirely. You do not raise them. That is the nanny's role, hired, experienced, soft-voiced but firm. She teaches them the alphabet, religious verses, posture, and cleanliness. She scolds gently but persistently. If the child cries, she comforts them. If they laugh too loudly, she quiets them. Emotion must always be regulated. You visit the nursery for 15 minutes each day, perhaps a bit longer if you're sentimental, but never enough to interfere with the routine. A good mother does not spoil. A good mother loves at a distance. You kiss your child on the forehead, smooth their hair, and nod approvingly at their drawing of Queen Victoria. Then you return downstairs to the parlor, to a life of embroidery and hosting. Even motherhood is muted. Education, the curated mind. If you are raising a daughter, you want her to be accomplished, not educated. She must read, but not too widely. Novels are acceptable if they are moral, but not if they are adventurous. Scientific texts are inappropriate. Philosophy is suspicious. Mathematics, unnecessary. Instead, she is taught piano for parlor performance, embroidery for patience, French for charm, watercolor for gentility, dancing for marriage. She learns history, but only the gentle parts. Monarchs, inventions, Shakespeare's comedies. She learns manners above all else. How to serve tea, how to smile without showing teeth, how to express gratitude in a single glance. Her world is small but beautiful. A gilded cage. An elaborate drawing room that she may never leave. Sons and legacy. If your child is a son, things are different. He will attend a real school. He will study Latin, mathematics, debate, history, and the sciences. He may go to Eton or Harrow if the family is wealthy, or a grammar school if merely respectable. His clothes change when he turns 10, no more sailor suits. Now he wears stiff collars, polished shoes, and a serious expression. His hair is slicked back. His shoes are always tied. He is told to be brave but not loud, intelligent but not boastful, independent but respectful. He is trained to become a gentleman and perhaps, someday, a patriarch. You love him fiercely, but you will not say it aloud. Too much affection weakens the boy, so you say it with a button sewn tightly. A biscuit left near his books. A hand on his shoulder when no one is watching. That is enough. Domestic quiet, running the household. Though you are not expected to cook or clean, you are the manager of the home. Your staff awaits your approval on nearly everything. Breakfast must be prompt. Chamber pots must be emptied before sunlight touches the floor. Lace must be starched and lamps must be filled before twilight. Menus are planned days in advance. Supplies are ordered through handwritten lists, and deliveries are inspected for bruised apples or wilted parsley. You know the names of every servant: the butler, the housemaid, the scullery girl, the cook, the governess. You never raise your voice. That would be vulgar. But your expectations are clear. A dusty stare or an undercooked scone reflects badly, not on the maid but on you. A Victorian lady commands without anger, corrects without accusation, and maintains peace without forgiveness. The afternoon tea, theater in a teacup. At 4 p.m., the table is set with surgical precision. There are sugar cubes, never loose. Spoons are laid gently. Napkins folded into triangles. The teapot is warmed, the milk poured after the tea, not before. Your guests arrive. 3 ladies, perhaps a cousin and her friend. They sit delicately, hats still on. Gloves may or may not be removed. The room decides that. Topics of conversation must follow strict lines. Acceptable. The Queen's new portrait. A recently published book of sermons. Tulips in the garden. The unfortunate passing of someone none of you truly knew. Crossmark forbidden. Illness in the family. Money. Passion. Politics. Real opinion. You speak in circles. You decorate your sentences like cupcakes. All icing, no filling. One lady begins to tell a story, but veers too close to personal feeling. You interject with a comment about the weather. Everyone smiles. Disaster avoided. Cleanliness and class, the invisible divide. Cleanliness is not just hygiene. In Victorian society, it is a symbol of virtue. You take a bath once or twice a week, depending on water supply. You may use lavender soap, rose water, and lemon rinses for your hair. Each morning you wash your face with cool water, dry it with a clean cloth, and pat a touch of powder across your nose. Perfume is subtle, just a hint. Too much and you are seen as unrefined. Your underclothes are changed daily. They are white. Always white. White implies purity, discipline, and money, for only the wealthy can keep white clothes clean. The poor, those who smell of sweat and coal, are not just unfortunate. They are, in the eyes of society, morally suspicious. To be clean is to be respectable. To be scented lightly is to be graceful. To sweat is to sin. Social visits, the day's work. Visiting others is not leisure. It is labor, unpaid, unrecognized, but essential. You spend hours planning who to visit, when to arrive, how long to stay. You write cards in advance. You rehearse your smiles. Each home you enter is a stage. You curtsy just so. You compliment the drapes. You admire the embroidery. You sip the tea no matter how lukewarm. If a baby is present, you say it is beautiful. If a husband is present, you say nothing at all. You do not laugh too loudly. You do not stay too long. The goal is not honesty. It is harmony. You return home exhausted, but you say nothing. Because if you complain, you are ungrateful. If you withdraw, you are antisocial. So you keep visiting, and smiling, and listening. The compass of class. You belong to the middle or upper class. But class is more than income. It is movement, voice, gesture. A working class woman may earn more from trade. But if she speaks with the wrong accent, stands with the wrong posture, or wears the wrong gloves, she is marked. Everything about you signals your position. The angle of your hat, the thickness of your veil, the shade of your gloves, the ribbons on your sleeves. Even your silence is a class indicator. The upper class speak less. The middle class imitate them. The poor are noisy. Their laughter is open, their footsteps fast. They have no time for performance. So you walk slowly. Speak softly. Breathe evenly. You signal status with serenity. The end of another day. Your shoes come off with relief. Your corset unlaced by your maid lets your lungs expand. You change into a nightgown of soft cotton, high-necked, ankle length. Modest even alone. You brush your hair. You cleanse your face with rose water. You step into bed with care, sliding under covers with practiced grace. The gas lamp is turned off. The room dims to a whisper. And still your thoughts swirl. Did I speak too much at tea? Did I walk too quickly to the market? Did I write that condolence letter properly? You sigh, a sound too loud for the silence. Tomorrow it begins again. The buttons, the gloves, the cards, the nods, the church and the lady. In Victorian England, the church is not just a spiritual place. It is a mirror. You attend Sunday service without fail, sitting in your family's pew, posture perfect. Your hat is neat, your gloves are white, and your expression is serene, not joyful, not sorrowful, just appropriately reverent. You do not sing too loudly. You do not cough. You do not shift in your seat. You listen to the sermon as if absorbing poetry, even if your thoughts drift to tomorrow's dinner guest list. Going to church is about being seen, not just by God, but by your neighbors. If you skip a Sunday, the questions begin. If you attend too eagerly, you're trying to be noticed. If you walk too slowly down the aisle, you're showing off. Even piety must be balanced. After service, you may walk slowly through the churchyard. Perhaps someone will nod to you and you will nod back. But no laughing, no loitering, no signs of fatigue. God may be forgiving, but society is not. Charity in class, giving with grace. A Victorian lady is expected to be charitable, but not too charitable. You give coins to the church's poor box. You donate old clothes, not your best, but gently used. You visit the sick with baskets of bread and jam, never empty-handed. But charity is not about fixing poverty. It is about expressing virtue. About reminding the world that, despite your satin gloves and lace shawls, you have a good heart. You may volunteer at a children's hospital or attend a charity ball. At the ball you wear lavender. You donate discreetly. You do not dance too wildly even if the music swells. The people you help must remain distant. You must not grow too close to a seamstress you assist, or show too much sympathy for a laundress's hardship. Why? Because emotion blurs class. And in Victorian life, class is clarity. Your reputation, a fragile currency. You have no legal power. You cannot vote. You cannot own property unless unmarried. You cannot speak in parliament or hold office or earn money in your name, unless you're a writer, perhaps, and even then under a man's pseudonym. But what you do have is reputation. It is your only shield, your only sword. Your reputation is not just your own. It is your family's, your husband's, your children's future. It can be destroyed in an instant, by gossip, by implication, by the glance of a neighbor who says nothing but means everything. What threatens it? A late carriage. An overly familiar smile with a gentleman. Too many questions. Too much knowledge. Too much laughter. Reputation is not built by action, but by restraint. So you stay still. You behave. You allow your goodness to be assumed because proving it would be unseemly. The unwritten rules. Some rules are printed in books. The etiquette manuals, the advice columns, the pamphlets written by proper ladies for other proper ladies. But most rules are unwritten. You learn them by watching, by failing, by blushing when someone says, "That's not done, my dear." For example, when visiting, do not sit down until the hostess does. Never pour your own tea, wait to be served. If someone is in mourning, avoid wearing bright colors in their presence. Do not speak of money, illness, or emotion at any gathering. Never call a widow Mississippi, never call a maid by her first name in public. Always walk with a parasol on sunny days. Umbrellas are for rain only. These rules shift slightly from house to house, village to village. You memorize them like a sacred code. Because once broken, they are never forgotten. Mirrors and modesty. There are mirrors in nearly every room of your home, but they are not for vanity. They are for vigilance. A Victorian lady does not check her beauty. She checks her correctness. Is her bonnet aligned? Her hem even? Her sleeves folded neatly? Her hair arranged with balance, not flare? To stare too long into a mirror is suspect. It implies self-love, and self-love implies rebellion. Your beauty should be noticed, not celebrated. Modesty is the fashion of the soul. So you step back. You adjust your veil. And you never ask, "Do I look pretty?" You ask, "Do I look appropriate?" The private self, who are you alone? Behind the door of your bedroom, when the laces are untied, when the shoes are slipped off, when the posture softens, you might ask, "Who am I truly?" You may sit at a small writing desk, composing letters never sent. You may weep for someone who never knew you existed. You may read lines from Elizabeth Barrett Browning or scribble poetry of your own. But none of this escapes the room. Outside you are the lady, calm, kind, composed. Inside you are a person, curious, quiet, aching for language. But even to yourself you must be cautious. Too much self-awareness is dangerous. It leads to questions. And Victorian ladies are not supposed to ask. Scandal, the whisper that destroys. One moment can change everything. A walk taken alone. A letter lost in the wrong hands. A smile at the wrong man noticed by the wrong woman. Scandal in Victorian society spreads like smoke in a silk house. Fast, choking, inescapable. And you cannot fight it. If you defend yourself, you seem guilty. If you remain silent, you seem secretive. If you cry, you are unstable. If you smile, you are shameless. So you shrink. You pray it passes. You clutch your reputation like a delicate teacup, hoping no one tilts the table. The art of disapproval. You are never taught to shout, protest, or argue. But you are taught disapproval, the most powerful weapon in a lady's arsenal. It is delivered in subtle glances, measured silences, a raised eyebrow, a soft cough. When a guest arrives in an overly bold dress, you smile warmly and do not invite her again. When a girl forgets to rise when an elder enters, you say nothing, and later mention to your friend how strange manners are becoming these days. Disapproval is never loud. It is soft, persistent, deadly. It keeps everyone in place without ever admitting there was a place to begin with. The skill of doing nothing. Your day may seem idle. Embroidery, letter writing, tea drinking, but these are not indulgences. They are skills. Sitting still for hours without fidgeting, that takes practice. Writing thank you notes with perfect penmanship, that is labor. Balancing conversation without leading it, responding without dominating, smiling without inviting, these are acquired talents, not instincts. You are trained to exist with grace, to make space without occupying it, to support every conversation without becoming its center. You become a frame, not the painting. But without the frame, society falls apart. Dimming lights, lingering thoughts. The evening gaslight hisses softly. You step into your room, nodding to the maid who curtsies silently. She sets your nightgown on the bed, your slippers by the fire. She vanishes like a shadow. You are alone. Your fingers rub your temples, not because you are in pain, but because the day pressed on your soul like a corset on your ribs. Your thoughts bloom like paper roses. What if you had spoken your mind at tea? What if you had worn blue instead of gray? What if you had not married? You will never say these aloud, but they live with you, in the folds of your dress, in the smudges on your gloves, in the letters you never mailed. And tomorrow, you will wake again, smile again, serve again, and keep the questions folded neatly under your pillow. Dressing the Victorian body. Morning arrives with cold water in a porcelain basin. The fire hasn't yet been lit. You shiver slightly as you rise, but you do not complain. Complaining is unbecoming of a lady. You call for your maid. She assists you with the daily ritual of dressing, an event that takes nearly an hour and requires layers of precision, patience, and propriety. First, the chemise, a simple cotton undergarment to protect your body from the harsher outer fabrics. Then drawers, long, open at the crotch, tied at the waist. Privacy is preserved not by the garment, but by silence. Next, stockings, woolen in winter, silk in summer, held up by garters just above the knee. Then the corset. The corset, constraint as elegance. The corset is the most iconic symbol of the Victorian woman, praised, blamed, misunderstood, and romanticized. It is not only an undergarment. It is a philosophy. The corset shapes your body the way society shapes your soul, tightening, refining, training. Laced tightly by your maid, the corset draws in your waist, supports your back, lifts your bosom, and forces your spine upright. You do not breathe deeply. You do not bend at the waist. You move gracefully because there is no alternative. And yet you do not complain. You say, "It helps my posture." You say, "It gives me confidence." Because to suggest discomfort would be to suggest that something is wrong with the system, and a lady never questions the system. Breathing under pressure. You learn to speak in short sentences. You learn to smile without laughing. You learn to cough into a handkerchief discreetly. You learn not to eat too quickly. Meals are delicate affairs, not acts of hunger. If you faint, you are not seen as weak. You are seen as sensitive, feminine, refined. Society praises your fragility, then demands you run a household, raise children, manage servants, write letters, entertain guests, and maintain absolute composure. The contradiction does not confuse you. It defines you. The petticoats and crinolines. Over the corset goes the corset cover, a modest piece of cotton with lace trim. Then the petticoats, at least 2, often 3. In colder months, one may be quilted. Then comes the crinoline, a stiff cage made of horsehair or steel hoops, worn around the waist like a bell. It keeps your skirts full, your legs modest, and your figure fashionable. You glide through doorways sideways. You avoid sitting too suddenly. You learn to turn in tight spaces like a dancer. Then come the underskirts, overskirts, and finally the bodice, fitted, buttoned up the front or back with sleeves that kiss your wrists. Dressing is a daily achievement, a test passed through stillness. Accessories of social armor. Now comes the outerwear. A shawl or Spencer jacket if it's cool. A bonnet, always tied under the chin. Gloves, never removed in public unless eating. A parasol, both for modesty and complexion. A reticule, your handbag carrying a handkerchief, calling cards, and little else. Jewelry is light by day, a small brooch, perhaps a ring. Diamonds are for evening, pearls for morning. Everything has a time, a place, and a rule. You are not dressing for yourself. You are dressing for the world's expectations. Sun behind rain, cloud fashion, and the weather. Rain is an inconvenience. Not because of mud, but because of appearances. You must not splash. You must not rush. If the sky darkens, your maid fetches your galoshes, rubber overshoes that preserve your boots, and a cloak. Umbrellas are acceptable but must be handled delicately. Rain, like grief, must be managed gracefully. If the weather ruins your hair or dampens your skirts, you pretend it has not, because acknowledging discomfort is itself unfashionable. Sewing and mending, the lady's skill. As a Victorian lady, you are expected to know how to sew, stitch, and repair, not because you must, but because it shows virtue. Idle hands are sinful. You embroider in the afternoon, flowers, initials, delicate borders on linen. You mend your husband's socks even if the maid could do it, because a well-mended sock says more than a perfect one. It says you are attentive, modest, loving. Sewing circles are common. Women gather to stitch and speak, but carefully. No gossip, no politics, only the rhythm of thread and the quiet of compliance. The language of fashion. Every garment you wear says something. White lace whispers purity. Dark velvet suggests maturity. Blue ribbons nod to loyalty. Ivory gloves murmur wealth. A trailing veil suggests mourning or mystery. Too much jewelry implies vulgarity. A low neckline can ruin your reputation. Fashion is a language only women speak, and even then only in riddles. Men notice color. Women notice meaning. To wear the wrong shade to the wrong event is to shout in a silent room. Hair and hats, crowns of femininity. Hair is a symbol of virtue, youth, and discipline. It is always clean, brushed 100 strokes, parted at the center, pinned in place. Unbound hair is for children, bedrooms, and scandal. In public, it is braided, coiled, and hidden beneath a hat or bonnet. Your hat is not for warmth. It is for signaling. A bonnet says you are modest. A boater says you are modern. A widow's veil says nothing, and that says everything. You remove your hat only at home in private. Even then, you touch it with care. It is not just fabric. It is reputation worn above the eyes. Perfume, powder, and paint. Victorian society frowns on heavy makeup. Rouge is for actresses, and actresses are for imagination, not marriage. But still, you apply a hint of color, subtly. A touch of rose water on your cheeks. A dab of pomade in your hair. A powder puff along the nose to prevent shine. Perfume must not be overpowering. A whiff of violets. A trace of citrus. If someone says, "You smell lovely," you have failed. If they say nothing but lean slightly closer, you have succeeded. Fashion is feminine survival. Every rule, every stitch, every accessory, it's not just tradition. It's armor. You dress not for expression, but for protection. To look correct is to avoid suspicion. To follow fashion is to follow safety. Society is a beast, hungry, watching, judgmental. It devours difference. It punishes deviation. So you tuck yourself behind pleats and petticoats. You hide your desires in folds of fabric. You breathe carefully beneath silk. You survive. The undressed truth. At night, the ritual reverses. Your maid helps you remove each layer. Each button, each hook, each string. Slowly, silently. The corset comes off. Your ribs expand. You stretch, but not too much. You yawn, but cover it with a hand. You put on a high-necked nightgown. Flannel in winter, cotton in summer. Modest. Long-sleeved. Buttoned at the wrist. You look in the mirror, not to admire, but to assess. Are your shoulders straight? Are your eyebrows tidy? Is your neck too thin? You are rarely satisfied, but you are always prepared. Because tomorrow it begins again. The corset, the collar, the scrutiny, the silence, the dance of courtship. You are 16, maybe 17. You've begun attending garden parties and afternoon teas as more than just the daughter of the hostess. You are now a participant in the ritual of courtship. But this is not a matter of love. It is a game of manners, glances, and strategies. A man does not approach you directly. That would be improper. Instead, he may ask your mother for permission to speak with you. He may engage you in light conversation about the weather, the garden, a book you pretend to enjoy, all within earshot of your chaperone. You never speak too freely. You never touch. You never linger. Courtship is not about knowing someone. It's about showing the world that both of you know how to behave. First impressions, lasting consequences. Everything during this time is a test. Your posture, does it show discipline? Your laughter, is it too loud? Your gloves, are they clean and fitted? Your book choices, are they appropriate for a lady? You may receive a calling card engraved with his name. If you're interested, your mother returns a card. A second visit may follow. He brings flowers. He stays no more than 20 minutes. You speak only when spoken to. And in that space, that quiet, arranged, polite space, you are meant to choose the man you may spend your life with. Not based on desire, but on decorum. The gentle art of flirting without ever flirting. Victorian ladies are not forward, so you learn the language of suggestion. If you drop your fan near a gentleman, it may mean you wish to speak. If you look back after exiting a room, it implies interest. If you smile with a slight tilt of the head, you are being daring. But none of these gestures are guaranteed, and all of them are deniable, because a proper lady must never be seen to pursue. Only to be pursued, gracefully, reluctantly, and eventually, obediently. The proposal, a transaction of futures. When a gentleman proposes, he does not do so on one knee. That's for novels and painters. He speaks to your father first. He presents his income, his estate, and his prospects. He is evaluated for connections, character, and financial soundness. Only then are you allowed to have an opinion. And even then, only a quiet one. To refuse a good match is not a display of independence. It is a scandal. To accept too eagerly is also disgraceful. So you nod gently. You say, "If my father agrees." And the decision is made, not loudly, not with fireworks, but with folded hands and soft voices. The marriage contract. Marriage is not a private bond. It is a contract, social, legal, financial. Before the ceremony, your family negotiates your dowry, land, money, heirlooms. You may not understand the documents, but you sign where your father points. Your husband receives your assets. You receive his name. Your personal property becomes his. You are now legally bound, not as a partner, but as a dependent. You cannot vote. You cannot sue. You cannot own anything separately. But you can smile at the wedding. And that is what matters. The wedding, performance of purity. On your wedding day you wear white, not because it is fashionable, but because it says you are untouched. Your dress is heavy, satin or lace with a long train. Your corset is tighter than ever. Your veil hides your face. You are escorted by your father. You walk slowly, eyes lowered. You repeat vows you didn't write. You are kissed, lightly, publicly. And when the guests cheer, you do not laugh or cry. You glow. That is your duty. The wedding night, mystery and silence. The house is quiet. The guests are gone. The candles flicker. You sit on the edge of a grand bed, a stranger in your new nightgown, your hair brushed 100 strokes, your hands folded neatly. You are expected to give your body, despite never having been allowed to discuss it. Your husband, perhaps just as nervous, undoes the buttons at your back. You do not resist. You do not lead. You comply. Because this is the price of security, the cost of being chosen. The unspoken agreement written into every lace doily and pearl button of your wedding trousseau. Married life, the polished cage. The day after the wedding, your life shrinks and solidifies. You are no longer a girl of potential. You are now a wife, a fixed role. Your daily routine is predictable. Breakfast with your husband, domestic management, social calls, letter writing, childbearing, eventually. You cannot leave the house unaccompanied. You cannot dine at a gentleman's table without your husband. You cannot entertain male guests in private, but you can attend charity luncheons. You can host dinner parties. You can decorate the drawing room. You can exist beautifully and obediently for decades. Motherhood and its expectations. If you become pregnant, there is no celebration, no gender reveal, no photos. You withdraw from society slowly. You speak less in public. You walk slower. You eat more quietly. The pregnancy is never mentioned aloud. Once the child is born, you are expected to recover quickly, not physically but socially. A month later, you attend a tea. A year later, you are expected to be pregnant again. You may not nurse the child. A wet nurse may be hired. The child will be raised in the nursery with a governess. You will visit them once a day and say, "Be good." Because good children become good ladies. And good ladies don't cry. Managing marriage, the art of endurance. You are expected to keep your husband content, though not entertained. Your job is to be present, not passionate. You serve his guests. You laugh at his jokes. You do not speak of boredom. You do not speak of loneliness. Affection is quiet. Intimacy is routine. Frustration is internalized. If your husband is unfaithful, you say nothing. If he is cruel, you remain polite. If he is distant, you wait by the window, then return to your embroidery. Because your value is not in what you feel, but in how well you hide it. Escape is not an option. Divorce is nearly impossible. To leave a husband is to become a scandal, even if he is the villain. You may lose your children. You may lose your dowry. You will lose your place in society. Your parents will be ashamed. Your friends will vanish. Your invitations will stop. So you stay. You pour the tea. You host the dinner. You smile. And in doing so, you preserve your survival. The cost of the role. One night you look into the mirror. You are 38. You have 3 children, a polished dining table, and a perfect reputation. Your hands are soft. Your voice is low. Your waist is still trimmed from years of corsets. And yet, you wonder what you might have been. A teacher? An artist? A traveler? You brush away the thought, because wanting something else implies something is missing, and you cannot afford to seem unsatisfied. So you light the lamp. You pin your hair. You prepare your smile. And you return to your husband's side, not out of love, but because that is what good women do. The drawing room, a stage for subtle power. The drawing room is your domain. It is not large, just large enough for conversation, piano music, and tea. Here you host guests with practiced charm, never betraying exhaustion or boredom. The carpets are thick, the curtains heavy, and the walls adorned with portraits that stare with quiet authority. Everything is arranged to appear effortless. Flowers in symmetrical vases. Teacups aligned with saucers. Napkins folded into shapes that hint at refinement but never flamboyance. You sit with your ankles crossed at the ankles, not the knees, too casual. You smile but not too broadly, too eager. You nod at your guests, never interrupting, too dominant. And you control everything. Not loudly but invisibly. You decide who is invited. You decide how long they stay. You decide which topics are allowed. Through silence, through smiles, through suggestions. The ritual of tea. The afternoon tea is not about tea. It is about timing, grace, and coded interaction. At precisely 4 o'clock, your maid delivers the tea tray. You thank her quietly, never warmly. Warmth implies closeness. Distance preserves respect. You pour for your guest. Milk first or after. It depends on class, region, preference. You know their preferences. That is your skill. Cucumber sandwiches. Currant scones. Lemon biscuits. Nothing too filling. Nothing too sticky. No food that requires biting more than once. You offer napkins, but you never dab your own mouth unless truly necessary. You never slurp. You never stir loudly. You never mention the tea's strength, because that would imply the tea was ever imperfect. The goal is not refreshment. The goal is ritual, entertainment, and expression. After tea, someone may play the piano. Often it is you. Your music is gentle, light nocturnes, waltzes, perhaps a piece by Mendelssohn. Nothing too emotional, nothing too grand. You play well enough to impress, but never to outshine. You may sing, softly in French, with a voice trained not for power, but for sweetness. Guests clap politely. You bow slightly. You return to your chair, hands folded, expression calm. Because drawing attention is not the goal. Displaying grace under attention is. The diary, a hidden companion. When the guests leave and the maid clears the china, you retreat to your private room. There, in a drawer hidden behind scarves and gloves, lies your diary. Bound in faded leather, its pages smell like ink and fear. Here you write what you cannot say. Mrs. L. said I looked pale today. I do not know if it was an insult. I fear my husband does not love me. He asked about the roast but not about my day. Sometimes I think of running. To where? I do not know. But far. You do not write for history. You write to exist. To say even silently, I am here. Nights of reflection. Night falls early in the English winter. You sit by the window, candle flickering, diary closed. The house is quiet, except for the ticking clock and distant footsteps of a servant preparing your bed. Your thoughts drift. Not wildly. Not rebelliously. But they drift. To a book you once read where the heroine chose herself. To a painting in the museum where the woman stared boldly from the canvas. To a dream you had once, of walking down a road with no destination, no chaperone, no corset. You pull your shawl tighter. You dismiss the thoughts. They are not for you. Needlework and narrative. Embroidery is not just decoration. It is storytelling. Each flower stitched into linen is a thought you cannot speak. Each border around a handkerchief is a cry for control. Needle in, thread through, needle out. The rhythm calms your mind. It gives you purpose. It makes silence bearable. You create beauty quietly. You control something even if only stitches. Sometimes you sew initials, sometimes birds, sometimes scenes from poems you read in secret. No one notices, and that is how you survive. The unspoken bonds between women. Occasionally a visitor lingers, a cousin, a friend, a governess, and for a few moments you speak freely, not loudly, not recklessly, but honestly. You may share frustrations with the cook. You may whisper doubts about your husband's fidelity. You may wonder aloud whether this is all there is. Then you stop. You drink your tea. You change the subject. Because intimacy is dangerous. But so is complete isolation. So you form quiet friendships based not on shared joys but shared endurance. Books, doors you cannot walk through. You read often but carefully. Too much reading is suspect. It makes a woman dreamy, unfit for company. You read what is allowed, poetry, biographies, moral novels. But sometimes you read what is not. You borrow books from friends, stories of women who choose freedom over safety, love over duty, truth over etiquette. These stories thrill you. They make your cheeks flush. They make your heartbeat quicken. And when the book ends, you close it slowly. You hide it away, and you return to your stitching. Because books are windows, not exits. The art of planning everything except yourself. You plan the menu. You plan the seating chart. You plan the order of calling cards to be returned. You plan the seasonal wardrobe, what colors to wear for spring, which dresses must be let out after childbirth. You plan everything, except yourself. Your desires, your identity, your future, they remain unplanned. Because planning implies intention. Intention implies ambition. Ambition implies dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction in a lady is unacceptable. So you plan your days and leave your soul uncharted. The weight of waiting. Waiting becomes a way of life. You wait for your husband to come home. You wait for your children to grow. You wait for guests to arrive. You wait for the weather to improve. You wait for the letter from your cousin. You wait for something. You don't know what. You are always prepared, always dressed, always listening for the knock at the door. But nothing ever arrives that changes the pattern. And so you wait for waiting to become peace. The mirror again, older now. You are no longer young. Your dresses have darkened. Your gloves are sturdier. You wear fewer rings. But you still sit at the same vanity. You still pin your hair. You still smile without showing teeth. You still measure your words like teaspoons of sugar, enough for sweetness, never excess. And now, when you meet young women like you once were, you smile with a different kind of knowing. Not of wisdom, but of endurance. You do not warn them. You do not advise. Because this world does not reward guidance. It rewards performance. So you clap softly when they play piano. You sip tea as they speak of their courtships. And you wonder if they too keep diaries they hide behind gloves. The household as a living organism. From the outside, your home appears serene. Curtains drawn, silver polished, gardens clipped, the image of order. But beneath that still surface, your house is a machine, quietly, constantly churning, kept alive by people you do not always see. The Victorian household is not just a family residence. It is a social factory, designed to maintain appearance and preserve reputation. And you, as the lady of the house, do not rest on velvet cushions all day. You manage it, like a conductor with a baton made of teacups and temperance. The servants you depend on. Your home contains more people than your family suggests. Each morning begins not with your own footsteps, but with theirs. The scullery maid, who rises before dawn to scrub the floors. The cook, who orchestrates meals with military precision. The parlor maid, who dusts around your slippers without ever meeting your eyes. The butler, who manages the wine and locks every drawer. The housemaid, who lays out your dress and folds your nightgown. the governess who teaches your children and dines alone, the footman who answers doors and carries trays, the coachman who waits in the cold, ready without question. You know their names. You know their flaws. You know their stations. You don't know their stories. The order of hierarchy. Servants live by rules as rigid as your own, but far less forgiving. They address each other not by first name but by position: cook, nurse, housemaid. They enter through separate doors. They eat at separate times. They speak when spoken to. The upper servants, the butler, the housekeeper, may rule over the lower ones with whispered glances and reprimands veiled in etiquette. There is a pecking order in the scullery more brutal than the one in your drawing room. And yet the household flows, because everyone knows their place, and no one speaks of what lies beneath. Domestic choreography. Every detail of your home, from the folded towel to the polished banister, is the result of an unspoken ballet. The servants do not run. They glide. Their goal is to be invisible, efficient, and never heard. Clean linens appear. Fireplaces are set. Cloaks vanish from the hall and return pressed and hung. You never ask how. You are not meant to know how the magic happens, only that it does. Because in Victorian life, smoothness is sanctity. Your relationship with help. You're always polite, never warm. You thank the maid who brings your tea but never ask how she slept. You request the dress with the lavender sash, but never ask if she has one of her own. Because familiarity suggests equality, and equality is dangerous for you and for them. You are trained to treat your staff as valuable, essential, and distant. You may inquire about the cook's injury if it affects the soup, but you must never show that you care more for the cook than the soup. That would disrupt the order. The staff know everything. They clean your bedroom. They wash your clothes. They know how many letters you send and to whom. They hear your footsteps at night. They see which books are moved from your shelf. They smell the perfume you apply when your husband travels. The servants know everything, and they say nothing, because silence is part of their wage. But sometimes the glances linger too long. Sometimes a name is repeated softly when you pass. And in that silence, you hear a judgment that no social rule can erase. The governess, a woman with no place. She is not a maid. She is not family. She is the governess. Educated, polite, skilled, yet paid to live in the shadows of your household. She teaches your children how to spell, how to sit, how to pray. She dines alone. She dresses plainly. She does not attend your parties. She is pretty, she is a threat. She is plain, she is invisible. She is a woman with knowledge and no power. And that is the most dangerous kind of woman in your house. Scandals in the scullery. Sometimes, rarely, the lines blur. A servant becomes pregnant. A governess is dismissed without explanation. A footman is caught reading in the library. You do not ask questions. The housekeeper takes care of it. The butler gives orders with raised eyebrows. And you write in your diary, "Eat gone. No longer trustworthy. Shame." The house returns to silence. But the walls remember. The stairs creak more loudly for a while. And your reflection seems a little more watchful. Hospitality and its performances. When you host a luncheon or a ball, you are the face of the household. But the success of the event rests on the servants' shoulders. The napkins must be folded with military symmetry. The crystal must shine without smudge. The wine must be poured before the conversation dries. And your role? To float. To seem effortless. To take credit for comfort you did not create. To smile at a guest and say, "We're so glad you're here," while a parlor maid sweats in silence behind the curtain. You do not thank them. You thank the occasion. The watching eyes below. Servants see you in your most unguarded moments. They see your petticoat stained with tea. They see your hands tremble when opening a telegram. They hear your sighs when the music stops. And yet they are trained to unsee, to erase what they observe. But some days when your eyes meet across a hallway, a maid carrying laundry, you with your letter opener, you wonder, do they pity you? Or do they think you have everything they dream of? You'll never know, because that would mean asking. And asking is not allowed. The bell system, a house's nervous system. In the corner of each room, a bell pull. You tug lightly. Somewhere, a servant hears the ring. Each room has its own chime. The drawing room tinkles. The nursery trills. The master's study buzzes. The bellboard in the servants' corridor glows with tiny labels. This is how you speak without speaking. This is how you command without appearing to command. It is power rendered polite. The house responds to your fingertips. But you never touch it too often, because dependence must never be seen. Loneliness in a full house. You live among people. Your children, your staff, your husband, your guests. And yet, loneliness pervades. Because no one speaks to you as you. They speak to the lady. They speak to madam. They speak to mistress. But the girl who once read poetry by moonlight? She speaks to no one. Only the diary. Only the mirror. Only the stars, seen through a high window in a quiet room, above a house where everyone works for your comfort, and no one knows your name beyond your title. A letter in black ink. You receive a letter one morning. The handwriting is familiar, but the envelope is edged in black. You don't need to open it to know what it means. Someone has died. Maybe your aunt. Maybe your cousin's husband. Maybe your own brother, whom you haven't seen in 3 years but still remember with startling clarity. The letter announces the death, the date of passing, and, most importantly, your required mourning period. Because in Victorian society, grief is not an emotion. It is a performance. Mourning is a ritual. The rules are detailed. If it's a parent or husband, you must wear full mourning for 2 years. If it's a sibling, 1 year. A cousin and uncle, 6 months. A friend? That depends on how close, how public, how recent. Full mourning means black crepe dresses, thick veils, jet jewelry, gloves dyed with chemicals that stain your fingertips. You cannot attend parties. You cannot play the piano. You cannot laugh loudly nor be seen walking in the park. Even your stationery must change, black border, black ink. Because mourning is not about feeling sad. It's about proving you know how to feel sad properly. The business of grief. You send for the dressmaker. She arrives with bolts of black fabric, mourning lace, and veils so heavy they cloud your vision. She measures in silence. You don't cry. You are dignified. She will return with 5 outfits. 1 for daytime, 1 for church, 1 for visits, 1 for receiving guests, and 1 for sleeping. The sleeping dress has no embroidery. Grief does not permit decoration. Even your nightgowns mourn with you. Grief and reflection. In the mirror, you do not recognize yourself. Your colors are gone. Your figure is hidden in thick skirts. Your hair, once styled with care, is now pinned back beneath a black lace cap. Your jewelry is made of jet or onyx or your loved one's hair, woven into a brooch and pinned near your heart. You do not wear pearls. Pearls are for weddings, not for funerals. You are no longer yourself. You are now the embodiment of sorrow. The closed door. During mourning, your door is half closed to society. Only close family may visit. Conversations are short. Tea is served without cake. No music is played. Every guest speaks softly. No one makes jokes. You do not smile unless absolutely necessary. Even the servants behave differently. They knock more gently. They move more slowly. They offer condolences without words, a bowed head, a quiet exit. It is not sadness that shapes this time. It is restraint, the passage of time. After months in black, you transition to half mourning. You may wear gray, lavender, or deep navy, as long as the fabric is still matte and the cut is modest. You may return to church. You may visit friends, briefly and without laughter. You may play the piano again, but only hymns or gentle pieces without feeling. You are not yet free, but you are less visibly bound. And that is considered healing, preserving the dead. Victorians do not forget the dead quickly. You keep a lock of hair in a locket, or in a tiny envelope with the name written in fading ink. You hang a morning portrait, the face pale, the clothes dark, the background gray like fog. Sometimes you commission morning jewelry, rings with initials engraved in Gothic script, or a small painting of a weeping willow and a tomb. The bedroom of the deceased remains untouched for months. Dust gathers. But the memory is actively curated. Not to comfort, but to show that you remember properly. Mourning as social armor. You attend a funeral. The church is cold. The flowers are heavy with perfume. The organ moans through the hymns. Everyone wears black. But you are the most somber, the most dignified, the most correct. Because your behavior at the funeral is a test. Of breeding. Of class. Of inner character. If you weep too loudly, you are hysterical. If you do not weep, you are heartless. The safest emotion is silent sorrow. So you lower your eyes. You bow your head. You breathe evenly. And you pass. Grief and gossip. Behind closed doors, mourning is discussed like fashion. She wore her lavender far too soon. He was laughing at dinner a month after his mother passed. Did you notice her gloves were not crepe? Everyone watches how you grieve. Because how you grieve proves who you are. Not just as a mourner, but as a woman. Emotional suppression. Real grief, the kind that comes uninvited and surges in your throat, is considered improper. Tears must be brief. Outbursts must be excused. Longing must be hidden. So you learn to suppress. To sit beside your sewing and feel your chest tighten without showing it. To feel your stomach sink at the sound of your loved one's name and still finish your tea. Grief is allowed, but only if delivered in the proper wrapping. Candlelight conversations with the dead. Sometimes in the quietest hour of night, you speak to them. A whispered name. A question, did you forgive me? A memory, the way they laughed when the soup spilled. The way they hugged you with both arms, not like most men. You light a candle and sit by their portrait. You pretend it flickers in response. You imagine they are not gone, but just waiting, somewhere polite and dark, behind a curtain you are not yet allowed to pull aside. This is the only comfort that remains. The belief that loss is not final, only delayed. When it is time to travel, eventually someone says, you should take a trip. It will do you good. You do not want to go, but you do. You pack carefully, mourning dresses, gloves, a parasol with a black handle. You go to the seaside. You walk slowly. You do not bathe. You do not ride horses. You do not smile at strangers. But you look at the waves. And for a moment, the repetition of the tide feels familiar, like footsteps coming and going across time. You do not feel better, but you feel different. And that is allowed. A year later, the mourning is over. Your dresses return to color. Your gloves are soft tan again. Your smile is permitted, though smaller than before. People stop mentioning the name. You no longer receive condolence letters. You return to the drawing room, to the teas, to the piano. But something is missing. Not just the person, but the part of you that once spoke more freely, more softly, more honestly. Mourning took it, and left behind someone more proper, but less whole. A girl prepared for marriage. Since girlhood, your future was whispered in lace. From your first corset fitting to your final French lesson, everything was preparation for one moment. Marriage, not love, not companionship, not choice. Marriage, the ceremony, the alliance, the joining of names and fortunes. A contract where land, status, and womb all become parts of the same equation. You learn early. Your smile must be gentle, your laughter modest, your opinions minimal. You are trained to be chosen. The courtship dance. You meet him in a drawing room. You curtsy. He bows. You speak briefly about weather, books, music, but never about yourself. He sends a calling card. He visits again. He speaks with your father. You exchange glances across tea trays, never alone. He brings flowers. You never touch. He proposes through your parents. You accept through silence. Your future is sealed with a ring, not emotion. The wedding day. The dress is white, symbolizing purity, though you may not feel pure, only puzzled. You wear a veil not just over your face but over your selfhood. The church smells of lilies and wax. You say, "I do," because you must. You do not speak vows you wrote. You do not look too long into his eyes, because this is not a union of souls. It is a performance, witnessed, proved, documented, and binding. The wedding night. You enter the bridal chamber, escorted by a maid who vanishes quickly. Your new husband is already waiting. You are nervous, terrified. You do not understand everything. No one taught you. Your mother gave vague warnings. Close your eyes. It will be over soon. He is kind. Or maybe not. Either way it happens. Not as a moment of passion, but as a crossing of a line. You are now a wife. You are no longer untouched. This is not about pleasure. It is about legitimacy, emotional distance. In the weeks that follow, you learn the rhythm. He visits your room on certain nights. You talk little. You perform your duties. You smile at breakfast. He reads the paper. You embroider. You pretend this is closeness, but it is not intimacy. It is routine. Sometimes he is away for days. You do not ask where. You are not supposed to. Wives do not question. They wait. Motherhood begins quietly. One morning you feel ill. The doctor is summoned. He nods. "Congratulations, madam. You are with child." The phrase is clinical, not tender. Your body is no longer yours. It is a vessel, a hope, an heir. You stop riding. You stop dancing. You begin to eat carefully, walk slowly, pray more often. Your husband smiles with pride. Not at you, but at what you carry. You feel both important and erased. The expectation of heirs. You give birth, perhaps in pain, perhaps with difficulty. You are not allowed to scream. The maid holds your hand. A midwife watches the clock. Your husband waits in another room. The baby arrives. A boy? Relief. A girl? Still acceptable, but try again. The child is named by tradition. You rest for weeks, recovering in a bedroom filled with silence. You may hold the child, or a nurse may do that for you. You are praised as a good wife, even if you feel hollowed out. The mask of a happy marriage. To the outside world, you are perfect. You attend dinners on his arm. You smile at his jokes. You host gatherings where guests compliment your taste. You laugh with other wives about small grievances, his lateness, his cigars, but never about loneliness, because no one admits that. To do so would be to unravel the very fabric of your station, and the cost of that truth is too high. So you pour the tea. You arrange the flowers. You keep the mask in place. Affairs and secrets. Some husbands stray. It is known. It is whispered. It is accepted. You pretend not to know. Some wives stray. Quietly. Carefully. In letters hidden under mattress seams. But always at great risk. Because if a man sins, he is forgiven. If a woman sins, she is ruined. You remember this. Each time your gaze lingers too long on the piano teacher's hands. Each time a friend writes with too much warmth. Desire is a door you cannot walk through. Only stare at. The separate lives within one home. Eventually you live like roommates. He has his study. You have your sitting room. He has his cigars and brandy. You have your embroidery and novels. He goes out often. You stay home. You speak only when required. But you know when his moods shift. You hear the way he clears his throat before anger. You can predict when he will forget your birthday. You are not in love, but you are entangled. The years pass. Children grow. Hair grays. You begin to resemble your mother or a woman from a painting. Your husband becomes quieter, perhaps kinder, perhaps not. He may fall ill. You tend to him, because that is what wives do. Not because you still love him, but because this is your role and you are excellent at it. The diary again. You write in the margins of your cookbooks. You tuck letters into the lining of a jewelry box. You speak to no one, but you write. He said he loved me today. I nodded. It felt like dust. Sometimes I think of the sea. I do not know why. I miss someone I never met. Someone I could have been. And you close the page. Carefully. Because the page may not be yours. Even now. Emotional numbness. There comes a time when you stop feeling. Not because you are cold, but because feeling burns too much. So you protect yourself in small ways. You close your eyes when he touches your shoulder. You turn your head when he talks of business. You practice your smile in the mirror until it becomes muscle memory. You are not unhappy. You are not anything. You are what is expected. Dreams you never voice. Sometimes at night, before the lamp is snuffed, you dream of living alone by the sea, of teaching at a girls' school, of boarding a train with only a carpetbag, of saying just once, I do not wish to marry. But these dreams fade before morning. They are not for you. They belong to another world, another woman, the reflection that remains. You stand at the vanity brushing your hair slowly, gray strands now, but still the same face, still the same eyes, and somewhere deep inside them, a flicker of the girl who once believed love was a thing that happened to you, not a thing you had to manufacture every day like a task. You smile at her. She doesn't smile back, but she remains, quietly. Motherhood in silence. You are a mother, but not like today's mother. You do not carry your child at all hours. You do not feed them with your own hands. You do not sing them to sleep every night. Motherhood is not intimacy. It is supervision. You give birth and then you pass your child to others. To the wet nurse. To the nanny. To the governess. You oversee, you do not raise. Not directly. And for that, a quiet guilt follows you like a shadow. The wet nurse's role. Your firstborn needs nourishment, but you are told your body must recover. And besides, your husband does not approve of the act. So a wet nurse arrives. A woman from the country, poor but healthy. She nurses your child as if it were her own. She sleeps beside the cradle while you rest upstairs in your silks. You hear your babies cry but do not go to them. You are not supposed to. It would make you seem low. The nursery upstairs. Children live in the nursery, not in your bed, not in your arms. It is a room filled with pastel wallpapers, lead-painted toys, and a rocking horse worn from use. The nursemaid dresses them. The nanny bathes them. The governess teaches them. You visit, briefly, for an hour in the morning. Perhaps again at tea. You ask if they are well. You smooth their hair. You feel warmth when their tiny fingers grasp yours, but you withdraw too quickly. Emotion must be disciplined, even with your own child. The governess arrives. When your children are old enough to read, a governess is hired. She is well educated, usually unmarried, and neither servant nor equal. She teaches arithmetic, manners, scripture, and French. She reads stories in the afternoon. She corrects posture and penmanship. She becomes the most consistent adult in your child's life. You grow fond of her, but never close. Too close and people will gossip. Too close and your children might love her more. Education and expectations. Your son must prepare for Eton. Your daughter must prepare for marriage. Both learn piano. Only one learns Latin. Your daughter reads Jane Austen and draws roses in her copybook. She asks too many questions. Why can't I go to university like George? You smile politely. You change the subject. You tell her what your mother told you. We have different strengths, darling. You will understand one day. And she frowns, because she already does. The pain of distance. You love them. You truly do. You watch them grow with awe and confusion. Their laughter makes your heart flutter. Their tears when you see them cut deep. But they do not run into your arms when frightened. They do not cry into your skirts. They run to the nanny, to the governess, and you watch from a distance, hands folded tightly in your lap, reminding yourself, this is how it's supposed to be. Family dinners with rules. On Sundays you dine together. The children wear stiff collars and do not speak unless addressed. Your son fidgets. Your daughter glances at her governess, seated near the foot of the table. Your husband asks about their studies. They answer politely. You serve pudding and smile at their perfect posture. But inside you ache to ask them, What did you dream about last night? What made you laugh today? Are you scared of thunderstorms like I was? But dinner is not for feelings. Dinner is for display. The first time they disobey. Your daughter sneaks a novel into church. Your son curses under his breath when he trips. They are growing. And with growth comes rebellion. The governess scolds them. Your husband stiffens. You say nothing. Later, alone, you smile a little. Because even though they are not entirely yours, that spark of defiance feels familiar. The son leaves. At 12, your son departs for boarding school. You pack his trunk with care. You stitch his initials into his handkerchiefs. You tuck a note beneath his sweaters, though you never ask if he finds it. You wave as the carriage pulls away. You do not cry. Not outside. But that night his room is too quiet. You sit in his chair and run your fingers over his worn books. And the ache is worse than you expected. Because no one warns you. Letting go begins so early. The daughter changes. Your daughter becomes quiet. She begins to draw in the corners of her books. Faces with sad eyes. Birds in cages. Women looking out of windows. She speaks of novels where heroines run away. She asks you if you were ever in love before father. You answer carefully. She asks if you ever wanted something else. You hesitate. And then you say, as all mothers do, wanting and having are not the same thing. She nods. But her drawings grow darker, preparing her for the same life. You buy her first corset. She gasps as it tightens. You show her how to walk with a book on her head. You arrange music lessons, needlework tutors, dancing masters. She sighs. You tell her she will thank you one day. She does not believe you, but you believe you must, because this is how it's always been, because no one protected you from it. So you pass it on like a stitched handkerchief, with love and resignation. A girl on the brink. She is 16 now. Beautiful, smart, restless. A suitor comes. He is decent. He calls her Miss and bows with precision. She does not smile. After he leaves, she says, I don't want to marry. You smile. You say, neither did I. And she looks at you startled. For a moment, just a moment, you are equals. The realization. You lie awake that night, wondering if you failed her, or if you protected her as best you could within a world that never asked her opinion. You remember her first steps, her first tooth, her first lie, and you realize she is now a woman, one who will walk the same path you walked with fewer illusions. It is not enough, but it is honest, and perhaps that is all you have left to give. Your life as a Victorian lady, social visits, gossip, and the theater of friendship. The calling card ritual. Each morning begins with a ritual of names. Your butler brings in a silver tray stacked with calling cards, thin rectangles of cream paper, embossed in gold or inked in the finest handwriting. Some cards have corners turned down, signaling the visit was made in person. Others arrive by messenger, a polite refusal or worse, an empty gesture. You study each name carefully. Mrs. Weatherby visited. Miss Lenora declined. Lady Ashcroft is in mourning, no visits for 6 months. You sigh. Time to prepare your own visiting rounds. Dressing for friendship. You do not dress for comfort. You dress for message. Lace cuffs. Friendly and feminine. No jewelry. Subtle respect. Gray gloves. You're in half mourning, dignified, not dramatic. A brighter parasol. You're ready to be seen. Your maid buttons your bodice, smooths your sleeves, and adjusts your veil. You are not going to war, but you are entering a battlefield of subtle ranks and hidden rules. The carriage circuit. You step into your family carriage, not the open one, too familiar, nor the coach, too grand. Just the modest four-wheeler. The route is rehearsed. Mrs. Lee's townhouse. Then the widow Farley. Then Miss Elkins if she's receiving today. Each visit no more than 15 minutes. If you stay longer, it implies deep intimacy or poor manners. Your driver knows the rhythm. You sit quietly rehearsing smiles. The visit. The maid opens the door. Mrs. Whitmore is receiving, madam. You're led into the morning room, all doilies and soft chairs and weak tea. Your hostess rises. You curtsy. She nods. Tea is poured, conversation begins. How is your dear daughter? Did you hear about Lady Westbrook's nephew? I do hope the new governess is not too severe. These are not real questions. They are invitations to perform. Gossip, the preferred currency. You discuss everything without ever sounding direct. A glance replaces accusation. A slight pause implies scandal. A raised brow suggests pity. You never say divorce. You say, they are living apart for a while. You never say bankruptcy. You say, their summer home is resting. Gossip is power, traded like pearls between fingers. You never drop the necklace. You only let it catch the light. The mirror of friendship. Every visit is a mirror. How your tea is served. Where you're asked to sit. Whether her maid brings you warm scones or dry biscuits. It all reflects your place in her life, and her place in yours. You make mental notes. She sat me by the window. She gave me the floral cup. She mentioned the ball but not the guest list. Friendship is decoration, woven from manners, embroidered with implications. When friendships fracture. She once told you everything. Now her letters are shorter. Her visits fewer. At tea, she avoids your eyes when the subject of husbands arises. You suspect something, but you cannot ask, because Victorian friendships do not dissolve in confrontation. They evaporate in silence. You send one last note. She replies politely, and you both pretend the intimacy never existed. The grand event, balls and invitations. A large envelope arrives sealed in wax. It is an invitation. Lord and Lady Haverford request your presence at the spring assembly. You feel both thrilled and exhausted. You must now send your acceptance, choose your gown, discuss the invitation with 3 friends and 2 rivals. Prepare your husband to appear moderately sociable. Events are not recreation. They are examinations of social skill. Each dance, each bow, each compliment is judged. The ball itself. You arrive precisely 1 hour late. Too early seems desperate. Too late seems dismissive. The ballroom glows with chandeliers and anticipation. Young women in pale gowns await partners. Older women, like you, sit in designated rows, nodding approval or whispering critiques. Your daughter receives 3 dance requests. You note each suitor's family and future. You dance once, out of formality, not joy. Your feet ache. Your smile strains. But you remain. Because leaving early would be noticed. The aftermath. At home you undress slowly. Your maid unpins your hair. You sit in silence. So much energy spent on small talk, flattery, gentle judgments. You want to sigh. But even that feels improper. So you write in your journal instead. Lady Fenwick wore a tiara in May. Bold. Daughter danced with that Lowry boy, promising shoulders, poor posture. I miss friendship that does not require perfect posture. You tuck the diary away and go to bed. Tea with a real friend. Once in a while, someone surprises you. A widow, a spinster, a cousin's sister-in-law. She visits unannounced, brings real cakes, sits in your sunroom and tells you, "My husband snores like a wounded bear." You laugh loudly. She laughs too. You talk about novels. You admit you cried during a sermon last week. She nods and doesn't change the subject. This, you realize, is not performance. This is companionship. Rare, precious, unwritten, the rival. And then there are the others. She's younger, richer. Her dresses are more daring. She greets you sweetly, but her eyes count your wrinkles. She compliments your gloves, then mentions her husband just bought her sapphires as a Tuesday gift. You nod. You know this dance. You've done it before. You're just tired of it. Stitching in company. Once a week, you join a group of ladies for embroidery. You bring a sampler. They bring gossip. As you stitch, someone whispers, "Did you hear Lady Elms fainted in church? I heard her corset was too tight." No, it was her nerves. Her husband hasn't written in months. Needles pause. Eyes widen. Tea is poured. The stories swirl like smoke. And you pretend to listen even as your mind drifts to the days when conversation had more kindness, fewer codes. The portrait club. Another trend, having a portrait painted among friends. You sit for hours beside 2 women you barely know. Heads tilted just so, eyes soft, smiles half-formed. The artist is quiet. The air is stiff. Afterwards, the painting is unveiled at a gallery tea. Everyone praises everyone. But privately? Each woman scans the canvas and thinks, I look old. She looks smug. My gown should have been ivory. And the friendship remains decorative, not deep. Book clubs and polite opinions. You are invited to a reading club. They read Tennyson, Browning, Bronte. You come prepared with thoughts. But opinions, especially strong ones, are frowned upon. So you learn to say, interesting. Quite unusual. I hadn't considered that perspective. Even when you want to shout. But this poem is about rage. About loss. About us. You smile. Because that kind of truth is not polite. Your life as a Victorian lady, religion, morality, and the quiet fear of judgment. Sundays are sacred. Sunday begins with the sound of church bells. You dress in black silk, not for mourning but for respectability. You wear gloves, a modest hat, and a veil that softens your face. Your family sits in the same pew each week, second from the front, left side. The sermon is long. The pews are hard. The air smells of damp stone and wax. You sit straight. You do not fidget. Because to fidget is to suggest a distracted soul. And distractions are sins in disguise. Scripture and scrutiny. You know your verses. You recite them when required. You speak of Proverbs 31, the noble wife. You avoid the story of Eve. Too controversial. Religion in your world is not about spirituality. It is about discipline. It's about teaching girls to be quiet and boys to be just. You study your Bible not with wonder but with caution. Because the wrong interpretation could label you rebellious. Or worse, godless. Church is stage. Attending service is not just about salvation. It is about being seen. You watch as others enter. Lady Clara still wearing lavender. Her mourning should be over. The Thompsons' son isn't with them. Again. Mrs. Entwistle's hair uncovered, in church? Every detail is noted. You do not judge out loud. But your thoughts hum with evaluation. Because in Victorian society, judgment is a communal activity disguised as concern. Morality at home. At home, religion shapes every room. There's a verse above the hearth. A psalter beside your bed. A copy of Pilgrim's Progress on the drawing room table. Even your servants are expected to attend chapel. Your daughter is not allowed to write letters on Sundays. Your husband refrains from cards and smoking, at least on the Lord's Day. You read scripture aloud in the evenings, your voice low, your face calm. But inside, you wonder, is this what virtue feels like? Or simply obedience? Guilt as a companion. You carry guilt like a ribbon stitched under your corset, invisible, always present. You feel guilty for envying others, for your boredom, for your silent frustrations, for not feeling grateful enough. Sometimes you question doctrine, but even questioning makes your chest tight. So you confess your confusion in your diary, not to your priest. And you pray at night, though the words feel empty. Still you pray, because not praying is worse. Letters of moral concern. Once you write to your cousin about a book you loved. You mention how the heroine disobeys her father and finds peace. A week later your aunt replies, books like that are not proper. I worry they disturb your gentle nature. You smile. You write back. Of course, I must have misread the intention. But inside, you fold the letter tightly and hide the book beneath your mattress. Charity is social duty. You volunteer. It is expected. You attend sewing circles to make blankets for orphans. You donate to mission boxes. You visit the poor, but never alone and never without gloves. Charity is not about connection. It is about moral currency. Each kind deed is like a check mark on your soul's ledger. But sometimes, when you leave a house of hunger or see a child barefoot in snow, you feel, this is not enough. And that is the moment you most feel human. The morality of dress. Your hemline reflects your character. Too short, you are indecent. Too long, you are wasteful. Too bright, you are vain. Too dull, you are depressing. Every outfit is a decision. Every ribbon a statement. Your maid asks, will you wear the blue? You hesitate. Is the blue too joyful for a day when the bishop is visiting? You choose gray, because safe is better than sincere. The quiet rebellions. Not all your choices are pure. Once you read a banned novel by candlelight. You skip church one cold morning and pretend to be unwell. You pass by a beggar and do not stop, just for once. And in those moments your breath catches. You feel something strange, not guilt, not relief. Freedom. It is small, silent, but real. The sin of thought. You are told that sin begins in the mind. So you watch your thoughts carefully. You avoid imagining a life without marriage. You suppress memories of the piano teacher who touched your hand too long. You push down anger. You smother longing. But thoughts are like weeds. The more you trim them, the deeper they grow. And every so often one blooms bright and sharp, and you feel truly alive. Then ashamed. Then nothing. Confession in the mirror. There is no confessional booth in your home. So you confess to your reflection. In the morning, brushing your hair, you whisper, "I don't like who I am. I'm afraid of being forgotten. I wish he loved me differently." And your reflection nods and forgives you. Because she is you, and she knows the truth beneath the layers of grace, manners, and godliness. Mourning and the theology of grief. When your aunt dies, you enter mourning. Not just emotionally, structurally. You wear black crepe. You cover mirrors. You avoid dances and public gatherings. Grief is measured in fabric and time. You do not weep openly. You do not speak of the loneliness. You perform sorrow. Because real grief is messy and Victorian life does not allow for mess. So you mourn by rule. And wait for the day you can wear lavender again. Religious literature and restriction. You love to read. But so many books are filtered by moral gatekeepers. You read Mrs. Gaskell because she's safe. Dickens is emotional but acceptable. You hide your Bronte novels in plain sight. But your true love? The poetry tucked inside a gardening journal. Let me not be bound by laces of virtue too tight to breathe. You underline it. You do not speak of it, because that line alone could condemn you. Sound of distant bells. Even when you're home alone, the church bells guide your time. They signal midday. They remind you of evening prayer. They echo across your drawing room like a question. Are you good? Are you worthy? Are you quiet enough? You close your embroidery, fold your hands, and nod. Because in this world, even silence is submission. Your life as a Victorian lady, marriage, duty, and the quiet cost of being a wife. The wedding you were trained for. You are 21, or younger. And this day, the wedding, has been prepared for years. Your dress is cream with lace embroidered by your aunt. You wear gloves so tight you can hardly move your fingers. You smile so much your cheeks ache. You do not know your husband well. He is respectable. He has land. He is courteous. He is acceptable. And that is all you are expected to ask for. The vows without choice. You stand before the altar. You promise to obey, to serve, to follow. You say the words clearly. You do not stammer, though your hands tremble. He says, "I do," with firm confidence. And when the priest looks at you both, you think, this is not about love. This is about duty. But you smile anyway, because love is not required. Obedience is. The wedding night. You do not speak of it before. You do not ask questions. The morning after, you wake with a dull ache and 1,000 unspoken thoughts. He sleeps beside you. You lie still and stare at the ceiling. You are a wife now. Your body is no longer just yours. You must become used to this. You are told, it is your wifely duty. Your new household. You move into his house. Not yours. You walk its halls like a guest at first. You learn the names of the maids. The butler. The cook. You ask questions softly. You write thank you notes for the gifts that keep arriving. You host your first dinner. You pour tea without spilling. And you begin to realize, I must be the perfect hostess, forever. Becoming Madam. Your name changes. Your handwriting adjusts. You are now Mrs. No longer a girl, no longer independent. Even your opinion changes weight. People now ask you, what color are you painting the sitting room? Will you join the church committee? Do you approve of this governess? But no one asks how you are feeling. That question is not considered useful. Serving his reputation. You learn your husband's preferences. He dislikes fish. He prefers red wine. He rises at 6. He expects dinner at 7 sharp. You make sure the household runs smoothly, because his reputation is now tied to your performance. If the soup is cold, you failed. If the servant drops the tray, you did not train them. If you lose your temper in public, you shame him. So you smile, even when your jaw aches. The uniform of wifehood. You dress respectably. Nothing too bright. Nothing too loose. Your sleeves are 3/4 length. Your bodice modest. You keep your voice gentle. You never contradict him in front of others. Your jewelry is tasteful. You are always presentable even when sick. Because to look disheveled as a wife is to suggest neglect. To appear tired is to seem ungrateful. Your daily schedule. 6 o'clock wake. Dress. Pray. 7 o'clock. Light breakfast. Review house matters with the housekeeper. 9 o'clock. Letters, errands, or social calls. 12 o'clock. Light lunch. Embroidery or reading. 3 o'clock. Visits or receive visitors. 5 o'clock. Prepare for dinner. 7 o'clock. Formal dinner. Converse, entertain, manage the table. 9 o'clock. Private reading. Needlework. Piano. 10:30. Retire to bed, husband willing. Each day. Every week. For decades. The silence around marital problems. He grows cold sometimes. Or distant. Or sharp. He slams a drawer. He drinks too much port. He does not return home some nights until late. You never ask. Because to confront a husband is impertinent. You ask instead, is something wrong with dinner? Were the guests unpleasant? Shall I change the music? You are not silent out of ignorance. You are silent out of survival. Childbirth and risk. You conceive. And then you wait. 9 months of soft shoes, herbal teas, and whispered advice. The doctor arrives when labor begins. So does fear. Because every Victorian woman knows, some do not survive. You grip the sheets. You cry out. You pray. And when the baby is born, you smile despite the blood. Because to not smile would make you seem cold. And you must be a perfect mother too. The weight of motherhood again. You return to motherhood, but from a new position. Now you're not the young mother with hopeful eyes. You are a wife with duty. Your child is healthy. You are praised. Your husband smiles. But at night, as the nurse takes the baby from your arms, you wonder, will this child remember my scent, my voice, or only my instructions? Entertaining his friends. He hosts dinners. You plan them. He invites the guests. You order the courses. He tells stories. You laugh politely. He brags about you in public, but forgets to ask how you feel in private. Sometimes one of his friends lingers at the door as they leave. A hand too warm. A glance too long. You shiver, but say nothing, because scandal is worse than discomfort. The loneliness no one sees. You sit alone in the garden sometimes, your hands still in your lap. You watch the roses bend in the wind. You do not cry. Crying would feel indulgent. Instead, you whisper words into the breeze, as if someone might answer. Is this what love was meant to be? Is this what I was trained for? Is there more, somewhere? The wind does not answer, but it listens, and that is enough for today. His portrait not yours. He commissions a portrait. He stands tall, hand resting on a globe, eyes fixed on the future. You are in the background, seated, serene, hands in your lap. The painter captures your grace, not your boredom, your poise, not your private thoughts. The painting hangs in the drawing room. Visitors comment. Such a lovely couple. So refined. You nod. You do not say, that woman is not me. Daydreams of something else. You imagine. A small cottage by the sea. A room of your own. A friend who asks how you are, and waits for the answer. A night where you fall asleep without planning breakfast. A morning where you write, truly write, and no one interrupts you. They are only dreams, but they come often, and they grow bolder with time. The diary you hide. At night you write. In a small leather-bound book with a broken clasp. You do not write about the dinner. You write about what you did not say, what you could not ask, what you wish someone else had whispered. You are more than his wife. You are more than this house. You are more. You close the book gently. You slide it under the mattress, and you sleep. Your life as a Victorian lady, the quiet rebellion, finding yourself in a world that doesn't see you. The awakening. It begins subtly. You're brushing your hair in the dim light of early morning, the rest of the house still asleep. You catch your reflection and tilt your head. For the first time in years, you ask a question out loud, so quietly even the glass barely hears. Is this all? You feel no panic, no shame, just a persistent echo in your ribs. The beginning of something. Not a storm. Not yet. But a shift in the air. Reading beyond the rules. Starts with a novel. Not one from the approved shelf. One passed to you by a visiting cousin with a sly grin. It's about a woman who leaves her husband. About art. About longing. About truth. You devour it slowly, not because it is long, but because it is dangerous. You keep it hidden inside an old prayer book. And every chapter feels like a match lit in a dark corridor of your mind. You're not the heroine, but you could be. The forgotten piano. You find yourself drawn to the parlor more often, where the piano sits. Dusty. Untouched. Once you played every day. Then duty came. Marriage. Children. Hosting. Rules. Now you sit at the bench again. You play softly at first, just scales like a ghost revisiting its old house. Then melodies return. A waltz. A lullaby. A song your mother used to hum. No one asks why. And that silence becomes a permission. The letter you never sent. You draft a letter. It's not addressed. Not dated. It begins. To the woman I was supposed to be. You write for 3 pages. Not to complain. Not to accuse. But to remember. You write about the books you never read, the walks you never took, the things you wanted to say in conversations that ended too soon. You fold it. Press it into a drawer. You never planned to send it. But now that it exists, so does the version of you who wrote it. A walk alone. You tell your maid you'll be walking today. Alone. She hesitates. So does your husband. It's not proper. You smile politely. I'll take the back path. It's a small rebellion. No scandal. No headlines. Just you. Trees. Damp grass. The smell of something wilder than perfume. For 30 minutes, you are not madam. You are a woman walking, with no destination, no conversation, no mirror watching. The secret circle. You join a reading group. But this one is different. No tea. No fine china. No embroidery on laps. Just 5 women in a quiet attic room, lit by candlelight and curiosity. You read essays by women. Letters from travelers. Banned pamphlets. Sometimes you just talk. Not about dresses or menus or husbands. About hunger, fear, desire, thought. You leave each meeting lighter and heavier. More full. And more frustrated that the world still only wants one version of you. Creating with your hands. You begin to knit again. Not because it is fashionable, but because it lets your hands move without judgment. You create a scarf, in colors too bold for daily wear. A shawl, too light for winter, too rich for spring. No one needs them. They're not for gifting or charity. They're for expression. Your stitches are crooked at times. But so is memory. And you are stitching your own back together. Writing for yourself. Your diary fills more quickly now. Not with social events or household notes. But thoughts. Dreams. Observations. You begin writing in the margins of cookbooks. On the backs of letters. In the blank spaces of sermon notes. Little sentences like, I miss running. I think I might have loved her. The moon looked like a door tonight. No one sees these words, and yet they make you seen, even to yourself. The map inside you. You once believed your life followed a single path. School, debut, marriage, motherhood, respectability, silence. Now you see there are smaller paths, hidden ones, some overgrown, some paved in dreams, some ending in cliffs, but you can walk them in your mind, and maybe someday your feet will follow, even if only for a moment, even if only in secret. A friend who sees you. One day she visits, not one of your old circle, a widow, a painter's daughter, sharp eyes, gentle voice. She sees the knitting beside your chair and says, "I used to do that, until I realized I preferred sculpture." You blink. Do you sculpt now? Only in bread dough, she grins. But yes. You laugh, not because it's funny but because it's honest. She stays for 2 hours, and when she leaves you feel no exhaustion, only longing for more time like that. When you're finally alone, late at night, the house is silent. The candles are out. The floor creaks with familiar echoes. You sit in your dressing gown, feet curled under you, the window cracked. The wind smells like freedom, faint, fleeting, impossible. And yet you breathe it in. You do not cry. You do not dream. You just exist, not as a mother, not a hostess, not a lady, just a person. Still here. Still real. Still yours. A photograph you hide. You have one photo of yourself, alone. You ask the photographer for it as a favor. No husband, no children, just you. The lighting is soft. You didn't smile. You didn't need to. It's the first image of you that feels true. You hide it behind an old painting in your room. Sometimes when no one's home you take it out and whisper to it like a secret twin. We are still in here. The beauty of unnoticed things. You begin noticing small things. The patterns on leaves. The way tea swirls in a cup. How quiet the rain sounds on the library roof. You begin writing them down. Not to share, just to keep. Beauty becomes a language again, not decoration. It begins to fill the cracks that once echoed with loneliness. And your life, still quiet, begins to feel painted in richer tones. When no one notices you're changing. You have not run away. You've not burned anything down. But you are not the same. No one mentions it. Your smile is still soft. Your tea still sweet. Your dress still modest. But your spine is straighter. Your eyes linger longer on certain things. A book, a bird, a question. You still play the role. But now, you choose when and how. That difference? It's everything. Your life as a Victorian lady, old age, quiet dignity, and the grace of letting go. The years begin to show. It's subtle at first. A gray thread in your hair. A stiffer joint. A heavier sigh after climbing the stairs. You no longer rush to greet guests. Your corsets are looser. Your hands tremble when pouring tea. But no one mentions it. To name age is to name mortality. So you age in silence, with dignity, with poise, with practiced ease. The mirror tells the truth. One morning you pause in front of the mirror longer than usual. Your cheeks are thinner. Your eyes softer. The skin beneath your chin folds more than it used to. But you don't adjust anything. Instead you breathe. You see yourself, not as a fading woman, but as a woman fully lived in. And that truth feels more comforting than any powder or pin could provide. A slower rhythm. You no longer attend every social visit. Your embroidery sits untouched for weeks. You rest longer after meals. And for the first time in your life, you allow yourself to stop performing. Not entirely. Just enough. Enough to enjoy the sound of a clock ticking. The feel of sunlight through a window. The weight of a woolen shawl across your shoulders. Becoming the matriarch. You're no longer the young bride. No longer the fresh hostess. Now you're the one others look to for stories, advice, quiet guidance. You speak slower, wiser, with more weight. Young women glance at you and wonder what you know, what secrets you hold. You smile softly, Because most of what you've learned can't be spoken, only lived. Remembering the little girl. Sometimes, while folding linens or brushing your hair, you remember being 7. Running through the orchard behind your childhood home. Laughing without knowing why. Holding your mother's hand before sleep. You do not long to return, but you do feel affection for that girl. She was so hopeful, so brave, so unaware of how the world would shape her. And you want to whisper to her, "You did just fine, little one." A visit to the past. You visit your old family home, or what remains of it. The gate is rusted, the stone is cracked, but the tree by the garden still stands. You touch its bark and feel the weight of memory, both light and unbearable. Inside nothing smells the same, but your fingers trace the windowsill like a blind woman remembering light. This was my first world, you think, and for a moment it still is. The letters you kept. In your writing desk lies a bundle of letters. Old ones, yellowed and crinkled. From your cousin. From your mother. From a girl you once admired more than friendship should allow. You read them slowly. Not because you don't remember, but because you want to remember completely. Each word is a piece of the life you lived quietly but fully. And you tuck them back into their ribbon, like binding your heart gently. Sleep changes. You wake earlier now. Sleep is lighter. Dreams are softer. More glimpses than stories. Sometimes you wake before the sun, sit by the window and drink warm milk. The house is silent. The world feels paused. And in that moment you feel closest to yourself. The one beneath all the roles. Just you. Awake in the early dark. Weather is a friend. Rain no longer means inconvenience. It means rest. Reflection. Memory. You sit by the fire and watch it beat along the windows. You remember people. Moments. Words. The rain sounds like pages turning. And it becomes your favorite book. Giving things away. You begin sorting your belongings. Not from urgency, but from clarity. You gift your silk scarf to your niece. Your favorite chair to a dear friend. Your letters, some of them, to be burned. You keep only what feels like you now. A single book of poetry. A thimble from childhood. The photograph you once hid. You are not emptying. You are distilling. Accepting the quiet. There are fewer visits. Fewer letters. You no longer mind. Instead, you sit in your room with a candle, a shawl, and the familiar creaks of your home. The world moves fast outside, but inside you move at the speed of meaning. And you like it that way. Visits from memory. Sometimes while dozing in your chair you imagine your mother brushing your hair, your friend laughing on a summer lawn, your child handing you a wildflower, your husband younger kissing your gloved hand. They are not ghosts. They are echoes, kind ones. And you feel no fear in their presence, only warmth. The legacy you leave. It's not written in stone, not published in books. Your legacy is smaller but not less powerful. It's in the girl who borrowed your banned novel, the servant who remembered your kindness, the friend who laughed without hesitation in your parlor, the daughter who chose her own path because you let her. You did not change the world, but you changed your corner of it, and that is enough. Faith finally yours. You no longer recite the same prayers. Now your prayers are silent. They rise from your hands as they touch wood, from your breath as it fogs the cold glass, from your chest when it tightens at dusk. You don't know where they go, but that no longer matters, because they are true now, and they are yours. When time no longer feels linear, the past feels close now, not behind you, just beside you. You walk into a room and see yourself at 16, at 30, at 70. They all live with you now. They do not haunt. They accompany. They remind you, you have been many things, and all of them were worthy. Final reflections. You sit by the window again, your favorite place. The sun is low. The sky is lavender. You think, I have lived, and not the loudest life, not the richest or boldest, but one with depth, one with sorrow, yes, but also with grace, with art, with love, quiet, loyal, unshakable. You were more than they saw. You were everything you needed to be. And now, you rest. Your life as a Victorian lady, society's gaze, private longing, and the mask you wore for decades. The mirror you showed the world. From the moment you were old enough to hold a teacup, you were taught to present. Your tone, your posture, your gaze. You became a mirror for others, reflecting what they needed to see. You smiled at guests. You laughed softly at jokes. You never admitted you were tired or bored or bruised by words left unspoken. You were a perfect portrait, and you forgot sometimes where the paint ended and your skin began. Mastering the mask. It wasn't false. It was expected. You became fluent in a language of restraint. I'm well, thank you. Of course, whatever you prefer. That sounds lovely. Even when it wasn't. You smiled at the dinner table even as your stomach churned. You kissed your husband's cheek even when his words had stung. Not because you were weak, but because you were trained. Trained to be a woman of composure, even if your soul was unspooling beneath your gown. Dressing the part. Your wardrobe told the world everything they needed to know, or so they thought. Cream lace for innocence. Plum silk for maturity. Black crepe for grief. Each layer was armor. Each bonnet a statement. And yet, there were days you stared at your reflection and thought, none of this belongs to me. Not the corset. Not the pearls. Not the painted smile. You wore them all anyway. Because society didn't ask who you were. It only asked that you looked the part. The things you never said. There were things you longed to say. Words that sat heavy in your throat like smooth, perfect stones. To your husband. Sometimes I feel invisible beside you. To your sister. I was jealous of your freedom. To your friend. I think I loved you once in a way we weren't allowed. But you swallowed them. Because a lady's tongue must be sweet, not honest. And you were a very good lady. Moments of private honesty. There were cracks in the mask. Small ones. A hand that lingered on a velvet curtain. A sigh that escaped in the garden. A journal entry smudged by tears. Little rebellions. Not enough to cause a scene. But enough to remind you, you are still in here. Beneath the etiquette. Behind the fan. Inside the shell of the perfect wife, perfect hostess, perfect woman. There was still you. The music that understood. You once listened to a violinist at a charity concert. She played a slow, aching melody that did not ask for applause. It spoke. And for 5 full minutes you were not a wife. Not a hostess. Not an ornament. You were simply a being, aching with the same longing stitched into each note. You never forgot that music. You never told anyone how much it meant. Because it was only yours. The letters you never mailed. You wrote letters in the night. To no one in particular. Some addressed to God. Some to your childhood self. One, folded 3 times and tucked in your corset, simply said, "Please see me." You burned most of them. But the act of writing gave form to feelings too heavy to carry silently. The fire may have taken the ink, but the truth remained, etched in your chest. Autumns that felt like endings. Every autumn, the world turned gold and red and sweetly sad. You watched leaves fall and thought, they don't resist. They simply let go. And you wondered what that would feel like. To let go. Of perfection. Of duty. Of needing to be so terribly, beautifully composed. But you never did. Not entirely. You held on. Because being a good woman meant holding on, even when your fingers ached from the effort. Small acts of quiet defiance. Not every rebellion needs fire. You began reading banned novels. Wrote a poem that never left your drawer. Stopped correcting the cook when she used too much salt. Let your child stay up late to listen to thunder. Walked without gloves once. They were small things. But each one felt like claiming a corner of yourself. A room the world told you shouldn't exist. Dreams you didn't outgrow. You dreamed of things well into your 50s. Of painting. Of sleeping outdoors. Of telling someone just once, "No, I won't." They never came true. But they never faded either. They lived beside you like old friends who no longer needed to be spoken to in order to be understood. You didn't resent them. You simply loved them, quietly. The way a woman loves something she knows she was never meant to keep. The friend who understood too late. There was a friend. You walked with her in spring under lilacs, skirts brushing mud. You read poems together, ones not meant for proper society. You brushed her hair once after she cried. And she once whispered, "If we had been born differently." But neither of you finished the sentence, because to say it would have been too dangerous, too raw, too real. You loved her, in a way the world didn't name. And that love sat heavy and sacred in your chest until the day she moved away. You never spoke of her again. But every time you touched lilac, you remembered, learning to see yourself again. In your later years, when mirrors mattered less, you finally saw yourself. Not as a lady, not as a wife, but as a full person, complicated, contradictory, soft and steel at once. You began speaking your mind more. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally believed you deserved to be heard. It startled people. You smiled at that. The box under your bed. There was a box you kept hidden. Inside, a dried flower from your first walk alone. A page of a poem torn from a banned book. A lock of hair from your child's first haircut. A letter you wrote but never sent. A ribbon from a dress that made you feel free. No one knew it existed. It was not for legacy, not for memory. It was proof that you lived. That behind the perfect posture and polished manners, there was fire. The night you whispered goodbye. One night in your late 70s, you sat beside a candle, and you whispered, to the girl you were, to the world that never fully saw you, to the mask you wore so well. Goodbye. It wasn't sad. It was release. You weren't dying. You were laying down the role. Like an actor at curtain call, still standing, still proud, but finally blessedly off stage. Your life as a Victorian lady, what you passed on without realizing. A daughter who watches closely. You never taught her directly. You didn't sit her down and say, "This is what it means to be a woman." But she watched. She watched how you placed flowers in the vase. How you paused before answering guests. How your hands trembled only when no one could see. She learned not from instruction, but from observation. And unknowingly she inherited both your silence and your strength. The thread you never cut. There is a thread between generations. Invisible. Sometimes taught with expectation. Sometimes frayed with misunderstanding. But always, always present. You carried your mother's thread. She carried hers. And now your daughter tugs on yours, not knowing it was never meant to bind her. You wonder, should you tell her? That she's allowed to cut it? That being a woman does not mean being a shadow? But you do not speak. Not yet. You fear the words won't come out right. A conversation you avoid. One afternoon she asks, "Did you ever want to do something else?" She doesn't mean harm. She means curiosity. But the question hits like wind through an open window. You stir your tea twice before answering. "I was needed here," you say, which is true, but not the whole truth. You do not tell her about the books hidden in your drawer, the painting you almost began, the love you never named. Some stories remain unspoken, because once spoken they would change everything. When she chooses work, your daughter receives a letter, a job offer in the city, a library, nothing scandalous, but something new. You say, "Congratulations," with a smile. But inside, your chest swells with something you can't quite name. Is it pride? Is it envy? Is it grief? You give her your old satchel. The one you never used because women were not meant to carry their own books. She doesn't know the history behind the gift, but you do. Your legacy is subtle. No portraits will hang with your name. No books written. No statues cast. But your legacy exists. In the recipes she rewrites. In the way she corrects a man gently without apology. In the way she walks without shrinking. You gave her more than you realized. You gave her the permission to be more. Even if you never claimed it for yourself. the books on her shelf. One day you visit her new home. It's small, but bright. And there, on her shelf, between novels and letters, you see a book. Familiar. It's the one your cousin gave you, the one you hid for decades. She smiles when she sees you looking. It was in your drawer, she says. You do not ask how she found it. You simply nod. And for the first time in a long time, you feel understood. A garden of her own. She plants her own herbs. Lavender, mint, rosemary. Not because she must, but because she wants to. You watch her, kneeling in the dirt, hair loose, dress wrinkled. You think, I never looked like that. And yet, you've never seen anything more beautiful. Not in salons. Not in portraits. Not even in stained glass windows. There is something sacred in a woman who owns her time. And you are witnessing it bloom. The pattern she changes. She's knitting something. Not lace. Not socks. Not baby clothes. A wall hanging. Bold colors. Strange shapes. You tilt your head. What is it? I don't know yet, she replies. I'm just making. You don't understand, but you smile. Because you never had the freedom to make without purpose. And she does. Because of you. A letter you finally write. You sit at your desk again. Years later. The candle flickers. Your hands are slower, but still steady. You write. To my daughter. I wanted to be more than I was allowed. But I was always watching. And hoping. And quietly cheering for a world that would treat you better. You are that world. And I am proud. You do not mail it. You tuck it in the satchel you gave her. Someday she'll find it. Not too soon. But not too late. When you see her laugh. It's the smallest thing. She laughs. Not politely. Not reservedly. She throws her head back. Freely. Loudly. Without shame. And for a moment you're stunned. That sound, that joy, is unfamiliar. But not unpleasant. It's the sound of a woman who was never told to dim herself. You realize, this is the future you never had. But you helped create. A photograph of her. She sends you a photograph. Taken by a friend. She's not posed. She's seated on the floor, surrounded by books and flowers and half-finished letters. She's barefoot. Her hair is messy. She looks complete. Whole. Like a woman who belongs fully to herself. You place the photo on your writing desk. Not as a keepsake, but as a mirror. Of what could have been. Of what became through her. The night you sleep peacefully. That night you sleep well. Not because the pain has stopped. Not because the world is gentle. But because something in your chest feels unlocked. Like a door that never opened before has finally let in a breeze. You dream of your younger self. But she's not alone. She's walking with your daughter. Both laughing. Both free. You smile in your sleep. You've given enough. You've broken the cycle. And now, you rest. The morning that feels lighter. You wake to sunlight on the curtains. There's a letter on your bedside. From your daughter. Inside. Thank you for everything. For what you said and what you never had to. I love you. I hope to live a life that makes you proud. And I hope you lived a life that made you proud too. You hold the letter for a long time. Then place it beside your teacup. You look out the window. And breathe. Your life as a Victorian lady. The gentle art of saying goodbye. The change in the air. There's a shift. Not dramatic. Just quieter mornings. Heavier blankets. Longer pauses between thoughts. Even the wind outside your window sounds more distant. You no longer rush to complete anything. The clock ticks. And you let it. You've spent a lifetime filling silences. Now you begin to welcome them. Tea gone cold. You pour yourself tea as always. But today you forget to drink it. It sits beside you untouched, cooling slowly. You smile when you notice. Not in regret, but in recognition. There is something poetic about allowing tea to cool, as though you no longer need everything to be perfect, or warm, or immediate. You have time even now. The reflection that softens. You glance in the mirror less often. When you do, you don't look for youth. You look for signs of peace. Wrinkles at the edge of your smile. A gentle sag in your cheeks. Eyes that have seen everything and still find the sky beautiful. Your face is no longer a performance. It is a story. And you have learned to love every line of it. The bed that knows you. Your bed has become more than a place to sleep. It is your sanctuary, your resting place, your tiny island in a world still bustling. The pillow holds the shape of your thoughts. The quilt remembers the scent of your skin. You lay down each evening not in exhaustion but in surrender. Not giving up, just letting go. The difference is everything. The hands that still work. You knit one final scarf. Not because it's needed, but because the rhythm soothes you. Pull, twist, breathe. You no longer care if the stitch is perfect. What matters is the motion, the texture, the warmth. This is your language now. Slow, soft creation that asks for nothing but presence. A letter you do send. You write a letter to an old friend. Someone you haven't spoken to in decades. It's short. No apologies. No questions. Just, I remembered the blue ribbon you wore that summer. It made me want to believe in joy. I hope you found yours. You seal it without expectation. Sometimes you write just to release something. Like breath. Like memory. Like forgiveness. The moon looks different. You notice the moon more now. Not just as a shape in the sky, but as something constant. It has watched you since childhood. It saw you when you cried silently behind closed doors. It saw you laugh too loudly in a forbidden corner. It saw you fall in love, once, deeply, completely, and then let it go. You whisper to it now in the quiet of night. Thank you for staying. The faith that changed. Your beliefs have shifted. Not lost. Just softened. What was once strict is now open. What was once spoken is now felt. You don't need answers anymore. You only need presence. You hold your prayer beads not to be heard, but to listen. To something bigger. Or smaller. Or simply still. Conversations with the past. You find yourself speaking aloud sometimes. To people no longer here. Your father. Your sister. The friend who vanished into the years. You don't expect replies. You don't need them. The act of speaking is enough. Like placing a hand on a gravestone and knowing, somehow, that you are not alone. The portrait you never sat for. No one painted you. There is no oil on canvas of you in fine dress. But if there were, you hope it would show you laughing. Or reading. Or hands deep in garden soil. Not composed. Not idealized. Just real. A woman who lived, not just existed. And that would be enough. The drawer you leave unlocked. There is a drawer you never let anyone open. It held your private thoughts, your unsent letters, your most fragile memories. Today you unlock it, not to explain, just to allow. If someone reads them someday, they'll know you. Not the polished version, but the true one. And maybe, just maybe, they'll feel less alone. You begin giving things away again. This time you give without explanation. Your embroidered gloves to the neighbor girl. Your favorite teacup to the nurse. A pressed flower to your daughter's daughter. Each item carries your essence, but no burden. They do not need to understand. They only need to receive. You are no longer curating your legacy. You are simply sharing pieces of yourself. One last walk. With help, you go to the garden one last time. The lavender is blooming. The bench is warm from sun. You sit. You listen. The bees are lazy. The birds are not in a rush. The breeze carries the smell of earth and memory. You think of nothing and everything. And you let the world just be. You've spent your life managing moments. Now you let one carry you. The candle at your bedside. You light it every night. A ritual. A signal. The flame dances. Soft. Reassuring. It is not meant to chase darkness. Only to accompany it. You watch it until your eyes grow heavy. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper, I am here. I am still here. The last morning you wake. It is a soft morning. The kind where even the sky seems to move gently. You open your eyes. Not startled. Not in pain. Just aware. Of the sheet. The pillow. The birdsong outside. You breathe deeply. And then simply smile. You do not know it will be your last. But somehow your body does. And it responds by being still. Peacefully. Completely. Fully you. Your life as a Victorian lady, the gentle goodbye that history never wrote. He's stillness that comes before anyone notices, before the sun climbs too high, before the noise of the world resumes. There is a moment of stillness. It wraps around your room like an old shawl, familiar, slightly faded and warm. Nothing hurts, nothing presses, nothing is missing. It is, quite simply, a moment of complete being. And in this stillness you rest. The bed you finally sink into. The sheets are cool. The air is lavender scented. A bird sings once, softly, and then stops. You are not in pain. You are not confused. You are not waiting. Your hands lie gently over your stomach, like you once held them in church. Your breath is shallow but sure. You don't feel like a woman leaving the world. You feel like one returning to it, a life remembered in threads. If someone were to walk in, they might see only an old woman asleep. But if they listened closely, if they felt the air around you, they'd hear it. The echo of 1,000 quiet moments. The way you whispered goodnight to no one. The rustle of your skirt across wooden floors. The soft crackle of your fireplace on nights you couldn't sleep. Your life is not a single story. It is a tapestry stitched from silence, grace, duty, and dreams. The unwritten story. There was never a book about you. No one documented your victories, your compromises, your secret wishes folded in ribbon and tucked in drawers. But your story lives. In the way your daughter straightens her spine when spoken over. In the letters your granddaughter writes that begin with, "Dear Self." In the quiet rebellions passed down like family recipes. You were not forgotten. You were absorbed into every woman who followed. The tree outside your window has been there forever. Season after season. Always just beyond reach. You used to watch the wind pull at its leaves. You saw birds nest there. Children climb it. Snow collect along its limbs like cotton. You always said you'd sketch it one day. But you didn't have to. Because now it feels like it has sketched you. Rooted, resilient, and still reaching for the sky. The hands that told stories. Your hands, soft now, wrinkled, light as linen, have done so much. They mended hems, poured tea, wrote letters, held babies, held secrets. They waved goodbye so many times. They folded in prayer even when faith felt thin. They planted, and fed, and soothed, and loved. And now they rest, not empty, but full of all they gave. The things no one knew. There is a box under your bed. In it, a letter addressed to someone you almost ran away with. A sketch of a place you imagined but never saw. A key that fits no lock in this house. A ribbon from your favorite dress. If someone finds it, they may wonder. But you do not care if they understand. The box wasn't meant to explain you. It was meant to witness you. The freedom you earned. For decades you lived with rules. How to sit. How to speak. How to hurt without showing it. But now no one asks anything of you. You don't need to apologize for resting. You don't need to justify forgetting names or dates. You don't need to be graceful or gentle or correct. You are allowed to simply be. And that is freedom. A final glimpse. The mirror across the room catches the light. You see yourself, not as you are now, but as you once were. A young girl with smudged shoes. A woman in a rain-soaked shawl. A mother with flour on her cheek. A wife pretending not to cry. And finally, an old woman, whole and silent. You nod, not to say goodbye, but to say, we did it, we lived, we tried, we mattered. A life that softened. You were never loud, but your softness was not weakness. It was wisdom. You knew how to speak without shouting, how to move without needing the world to follow, how to endure without breaking. The world never made it easy for quiet women, but quiet women shaped it anyway. One small, gentle step at a time. The final candle. Your daughter visits. She brings tea and talks about her day. She doesn't know this is the last time, but you do. And so, you hold her hand a little longer. Touch her cheek. Whisper something she won't remember the words of, but will carry in her bones. After she leaves, you light one final candle, and let it burn low. You watch the flame flicker. You whisper, "This life was mine." What happens next? No one knows. Perhaps there is music. Perhaps light. Perhaps just quiet. But you are not afraid. You've lived through enough to know that endings are not cruel. They are simply the space before something else. You do not need to know what that is. You only need to rest. A sky full of everything you were. Outside, stars begin to appear. Each one a memory, a moment, a laugh, a tear, a hand held too briefly. They shimmer, not in sorrow but in celebration. You were here. You lived. You mattered. And now you are part of the sky. And then there is stillness. The kind poets write about. The kind that feels full, not empty. And you are at peace. No curtain falls. No final word. Just soft breath. And the hush of everything you ever were returning gently to the world.